Hey everyone, Bishop Hinckley here, and want to thank you all for joining me again here. I have something to share that I hope you'll find interesting. I feel like this topic has been sort of beat to death, but at the same time, I have come across many active Mormons who are still not familiar with this whole topic. So, as a community service, I just want to go through some things, and I have titled this "Between a Rock and a Hard Place." So, to begin, I have a rock collection, and you see my rocks there in a jar, and I've written some stuff on them. Well, what that is as a whitewater kayaker, I find myself away from my family a lot. There I am coming down a nice little waterfall. And it does take a lot of time out of, out of my life, out of my day. And it takes a couple hours to get where we kayak. And, anyways, to prove to my wife that I was thinking about her that particular day, I would look for a rock and I would bring it back home to her. And so I'd put it in a jar and I would write down, you know, where it was from and what the level was or whatever. So that's my rock collection, very important. Um, so imagine my surprise when recently I found out that Joseph Smith also had a rock collection. Um, I have sort of, uh, I have sort of uh, seen myself as a Joseph Smith expert. I have led firesides in the stake and in the ward, and I've done youth events at youth conference and things where I've told all about Joseph Smith. I got a lot of my information from Truman G. Madsen, and who was a quite an expert himself. So I've learned a lot of things that the average member may not have known. However, I had never really come across all of this stuff about Joseph's rock collection. So, going to the translation of the Book of Mormon, this is basically how we have always been taught that it happened. You see young Joseph there with the plates in front of him, and he's deep in prayer and thought and studying over the plates while the translation, and that's the key word. We're constantly told it's just simply translating from one language to another. And of course, that's probably Oliver there on the other side, and he can't see the plates, so they've got a sheet up or whatever. So that's how we've always been told that the translation of the Book of Mormon took place. So imagine my surprise when the church releases, along with the reorganized church or Church of Christ or whoever it was, they do a release, what's this called when you anyway, and lo and behold, they produce a seer stone, and it's a press release, word I was looking for, and they do a press release and they say, "Hey, everyone, this is Joseph's actual seer stone." Now, I've heard a lot of people be like, "Wait, this is the actual one?" Yeah, this is it. This is the seer stone, um, you know, that produced the Book of Mormon. So this whole idea just was totally different than what any of us had been taught. Now, some people will say, oh, well, that's been out there. You should have known. No, I mean, we've even had prophets. I'll get to that in a second, but we've had prophets that have come out and said, no, that whole seer stone bullshit did not happen. So I just want to play real quick this video. This is our prophet explaining this whole scenario.
Suggestions about how it was done. We know that they had a table like this. We know they had the golden plates covered usually, and Joseph used these the Urim and Thummim seer stones in the hat, and it was easier for him to see the light when he take that position. To me, it's like having my mobile phone at my hand, and I can get messages on it that you can't see.
That's true.
Okay, I gotta stop this. I mean, look at that face on her, whoever it was. She's just like, that's true. But it's not true. It's not like having a cell phone. Cell phones have to charge up, and then they light up. Hey, there's my wife. They light up because they're charged up. They have batteries. It's not like a cell phone to put a rock in a hat. We need to stop with this cell phone analogy nonsense. It makes no sense. There's no relation whatsoever. So, to have our prophet, when he started to put his head in the hat, I know I can perceive his thoughts. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is going to show up on all kinds of ridiculous podcasts and things. And I'm really screwing up. So he starts to actually put his head down in the hat. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. That was a little too much. But yeah, to me, it's like having a cell phone and, I can get a message and you can't get it. That's nonsense. Okay. So this would have been then more kind of like what we're told happened. And we know that Emma, she was the scribe there for a little bit. Joseph had different scribes, but you see the plates there just covered up. There were times that the plates were actually not even in the room while the translation was taking place. So that brings up a very interesting point. We read about how these prophets painstakingly, engraved into these plates, had to have been a very time-consuming effort. Moroni's carrying them around, running from the bad guys, and buries them. All of this effort to save these, but apparently we did not even need them. All we needed was just simply a hat and a rock. So lots of people have pointed out that, that's why did we even need the plates? So here's some of the characters. Apparently, these have been studied quite intensely, and apparently, the characters, this was supposed to be Reformed Egyptian, which is a language that does not exist. But Joseph said it was written in Reformed Egyptian. And many of these characters oddly look just like, English. I see an H, I see an A, I see. So anyways, we're starting to get this different narrative, and that Joseph would put his head in a hat, put his rock in the hat, and the words would appear on the rock. He would call them out, and they would write them down. And if that was the case, then it would truly be the most correct book, because it's coming from a miraculous source. the rock, the cell phone, and it's being written down. The only potential for mistakes would be, did I hear you right? And so we were told that they would repeat back, and as long as it was right, then the next word would appear on the rock. But for some reason, there have been thousands of changes to the Book of Mormon. And I'm not just talking about grammatical, even though why would if words can appear on the rock, why would commas and question marks not appear on the rock? We have dead prophets showing up back up after they've already dead. And if you haven't seen that, there's a whole King Mosiah and King Benjamin debacle where one prophet was already dead, but then in the next chapter he shows back up, and so they had to change that. And the other thing that's interesting is in the original version there was a lot of this, quite frankly, the way that I talk, but a lot of this backwoods talk. The Lamanites were a going up yonder type stuff, and I'm fine with that. I see nothing wrong with that. However, at some point they determined, for the most correct book, we're going to have to take out this backwoodsy stuff, this up yonder and a going. And it is interesting that in some of Joseph's own letters to some people, they have found where he had wrote a going, you need to be a going over here or whatever. So yeah, we do see some similarities there. Okay, so Joseph Fielding Smith had said this statement about the whole rock and the hat thing, and he was one of our prophets. While the statement has been made by some writers that the prophet Joseph Smith used a seer stone part of the time in his translating of the record, and information points to the fact that he did have in his possession such a stone, yet there is no authentic statement in the history of the church which states that the use of such a stone was made in that translation. The information is all hearsay, and personally, I do not believe that this stone was used for this purpose. Well, now we have our current prophet saying that he did. So, just thinking about this whole thing for a second, some people would say, why do you care? Why does it matter? Like, it was miraculous either way. It was either just, coming to his mind as inspiration, as revelation, as he rubbed his fingers across the braille on the plates. That was kind of what we believed before. And it's like, well, that was miraculous, and so now we're changing the story, and it's still miraculous. So what's the big deal? So I was thinking about that last night. Okay, what's the big deal? Number one, why was the story changed? Number two, what I've come to realize is in the magical worldview of the time, seer stones were kind of fringe, but they were accepted among some people. And so it was something that they could claim that at least there was a subset of people that believed it. Okay. It would be kind of like the way that some people see fortune telling, or palm reading today, in my opinion, that some people believe it, but it's definitely kind of fringe. Well, as time went on, this practice of seer stones was starting to be really looked down upon. And so it was starting to become embarrassing for the church to associate with that. And so they changed the story. And then that led up until, we were all taught but for it to actually, we're constantly told it's a translation and not a revelation, not an inspired book, but that he translated it. So in order to be translated, it was just simply going from one language to another, reading it off of a rock. So going back to the magical worldview, seer stones were not the only thing. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to tread lightly, but in my wife's family currently, they still believe in some things kind of like this. It's got lots of different names: water witching, witching for water, divining rod or divining rod or whatever it is. But that basically a way to find water with a stick. My wife's family lives on there's lots of wells in this area, and actually, they determine where to dig their well by doing something like this. I've seen my father-in-law do it, and as far as I could tell, it was real and working. Interestingly, Mythbusters has done an episode. I just want to play a little part from that. All right, this is called "Were Any Myths Deemed Too Simple to Test on Mythbusters?" I think you might find this interesting.
There is a myth that we never did, but not because it broke the laws of physics, and that's dowsing, which does break the laws of physics. And to be clear, dowsing is the practice of holding on to two ends of a forked stick and using the single piece out there to find water. This is a long and storied tradition, and people have been using this method to find water for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I don't know exactly how long. However, dowsing has never survived empirical testing. Never. It's never survived. And there's been some pretty clever methodologies, like putting someone in an empty building where every floor is completely empty and putting a giant volume of water on one floor and taking a dowser and putting them on the floor above that, and they couldn't figure out where the water was. And they knew there was like 100,000 gallons of water somewhere on this floor. Like, that's a great methodological test. So why didn't we do it? It's because of the nature of our show. The nature of our show is that we would have a question to answer, and we would find experts to help us answer it, and we would conduct our own tests to figure out the answer. But it's very hard to prove a negative. If you go out looking for Bigfoot and you don't find Bigfoot, you haven't proven that Bigfoot doesn't exist. You've only proved that you don't know how to find Bigfoot. So proving a negative was something we actively avoided. But if you're going to try and prove a negative, you really want a control. And the control would have been bringing in a dowser, someone who believed in their skill, and have them apply it for us successfully under their conditions. And then we would give them our conditions. And presumably, in the structure of the show, we would make a fool out of them. We'd take someone who did this for a living and we'd show them to be false about it. We'd show them that they were wrong. Now, I get that some people would be delighted to learn that, but that kind of interaction, that wasn't a Mythbusters kind of interaction. That's not the kind of show we made. It wasn't.
All right, you get the point. So yeah, they did not want to do this because they didn't want to make people look like a fool. And if you go on and listen to that episode, he actually gives a couple unfortunate situations where this same type of thing actually led to some death. There were people that believed they could find bombs by using a similar method in a minefield, and they would put them in front of the army or whoever, and they were like, yeah, I can find them, and ended up, blowing up a whole bunch of people. So anyways, this whole idea of this magical worldview of finding lost things or finding water has been going on for years and years. And for people that respect the laws of physics and science and things, you know that that's just simply not, it's just not true. Okay. However, in the Book of Mormon, we still see this same type of story. You might remember this story of the Jaredites. And the brother of Jared, they were like, we're about to go on this long trip and we don't have no light. And so they're like, well, maybe, you know, the Lord touches some stones and there he's like, oh, here's your magical stones. You'll use these as light, you know, like 60-watt stone lights. And so I guess they would just probably put them around the boat in there. I mean, they had bees, they had all kinds of things in these boats. So anyways, you have this same story showing up in the Book of Mormon of these magical stones. And the thought comes to my mind, do we have any of these that are lighting up? And then I'm like, well, yeah, maybe they power the temple lights, you know, that stay on all night. Something has to power them. And so it could very well be that we have a stone that Jesus's hand touched that lit up those rocks, and maybe we put them in each of our temples at night. I'm just brainstorming here. Okay, so going back to Joseph, the historical records show that Joseph Smith had multiple seer stones, with some accounts suggesting that he used at least 2 or even several different stones for various purposes, including the Book of Mormon. Well, we're also told that he had used one for even the Book of Abraham. Now, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but that particular stone, Joseph, I would get rid of it. That one was a dud if I've ever seen one. Now, Brigham Young said, every man that lives on earth is entitled to his own seer stone. Now, my wife got me a gift. She got me my own seer stone, and it just got delivered yesterday. I want to show this to you as you're going to be as amazed as I am. It's sort of chocolate covered, which, you know, that's good. I have my hat here, and apparently when you put these stones down in a hat, they, oh my gosh. No, never mind. That's just my hat lighting up. Okay. Yeah, apparently the light the stone will light up in the hat. So I'm still trying to figure out, I got to get it charged or something, but I'm really excited to start using these. And as Brigham Young said, you know, every man is entitled to his own. And, you know, I have my own. I am entitled to it. Which one would you choose? You know, here's some options. And, you know, you just think, well, if I'm entitled to one, I just wanted you all to see lots of different options that you could choose. In conclusion, it seems to me that everyone in Mormonism is just simply getting their rocks off. It gives maybe a different interpretation to when Jesus told Peter, upon this rock, I will build my church. It seems that, you know, rocks are just flying off the shelves. They're everywhere. And our church now finds itself between a rock and a hard place. Now, I don't believe any of this rock nonsense. I don't believe Jesus touched them, that they lit up as lights. I don't believe that you can put them in a hat and words will appear. I just simply don't believe it. It's not, it doesn't agree with the laws of physics. And I've learned that is one thing that I can trust is just logic and reason. And this is not logical. So I understand why the church would find itself now between a rock and a hard place. What do we do? And they seem to be going towards the direction of saying that the Book of Mormon is just simply inspired. And if it were that, fine. But to say that it's a translation off of a rock in a hat, this is a child's story. And we need to stop with this bullshit, be a little bit more honest. That's what I have to tell about rocks. And thanks for joining me.